Hello friends, how are you all? I'm Nupur. I just want to share with you the book I'm currently reading. It is so interesting, so beautiful that I just can't stop but without sharing with you. So this book is written by Russian writer Chinghiz Aitmatov, and the name of the book is Tales of the Mountains and Steppes. As usual, who can but notice and fall in deep love with an inherent poetic quality, which is omnipresent in all of Aitmatov's work. This book is also not an exception. He speaks of Kyrgyzia with its boundless steppes, majestic mountain ranges, and its people who are so deeply attached to their native land. It's a long book, but in the story there is a boy named Seyit, who is 15-year-old, and he is teetering on the brink of adulthood, the only son of his family not at war. A boy doing adult work, a boy who never dared to open his heart to the passion of art that lay deep within it. Then there is this young, boisterous Jamila, who is Seyit's sister-in-law, whose husband is away at war. And Seyit is very protective about her sister-in-law. And then there is Daniyar, a wounded soldier, very quiet and introspective, and therefore very easily dismissed by those accustomed to domineering and outwardly assertive jijets. It is through Seyit's naive and mesmerized and often confused eyes that we get to experience this short lyrical story of love, beauty, and growing up. It is through Seyit's eyes that we see the development of that quiet, subdued love that grows between Jamila and Daniyar. So I will read one portion of the book where Daniyar's song and how it affected Jamila as well as Seyit is very, 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 passionately described by the author. I hope you love this portion. If you have any question or if you want to just know some portion of the book furthermore, please let me know in your comment. I will try to share that with you. Thank you very much. Enjoy. All the next day, Daniyar behaved as quietly and calmly as ever, in no way expressing his feelings, though his limp was more marked, and especially so when he carried a sack. His reminder of our guilt. Nevertheless, if he had laughed or joked, it would have put an end to the strain. Jamila too pretended that nothing unusual had happened. A proud girl, she laughed as always, but I saw how ill at ease she was. It was late as we journeyed home from the station. Daniyar rode on ahead. The night was magnificent. Who doesn't know these August nights with their far-off, yet so close, gleaming stars? There was one star, it seemed frozen round the edges. Its icy rays sparkled as it looked down from the dark sky in surprise at the earth below. I gazed at it as we rode through the canyon. The horses, eager to be home, trotted briskly, and gravel crunched under the wheels. The wind from the steppe brought the bitter smell of flowering warm wood, the faint aroma of cooling ripe wheat, and all this mingling with the smell of tar and horses' sweat made our heads light. To one side, dark briar-covered cliffs hung over the road. To the other, from far below, from the thicket of rose, willow, and young poplars, the restless curcuria rushed on. Now and then a train would thunder over the far bridge. The clatter of its wheels would trail it long after it had vanished in the distance. It was good to ride in the coolness, to watch the moving backs of the horses, to listen to the sound of the August night and breathe in its smells. Jamila rode ahead of me. She had let go of the reins and was looking about as she sang softly. I knew our silence hung heavily on her. It was impossible to be silent on such a night. It was a night made for singing. And she began to sing. Perhaps she sang because she was seeking a way to return the former easy spirit of our relationship, and because she wanted to dispel her feeling of guilt. She had a ringing, mischievous voice, and she sang the usual village songs. I will wave my kerchief as you pass, and my beloved has gone far away. She knew many songs and sang them simply and with feeling, making it pleasant to listen to her. Suddenly she stopped and hailed Daniyar. Hey Daniyar, why don't you sing something? Aren't you a digit? You sing, Jamila, he answered in some confusion, holding back his horses. I'm listening. I'm all ears. Don't you think we have ears too? Nobody's forcing you. You don't have to if you don't want to. And Jamila began to sing again. Who knows why she had asked him to sing? Perhaps it was just a whim, or perhaps she wanted to draw him into a conversation. It was probably the latter, for soon she shouted again. Tell me, Daniyar, were you ever in love? And she laughed. He said nothing. Jamila also felt silent. She certainly found the right person to ask for a song, I thought. The horses slowed down at the little river that crossed the road. Their hoofs clattered over the wet, silvery stones. When we had passed the ford, Daniyar whipped the horses and suddenly began to sing in a strained voice that broke at every bump in the road. My mountains, my blue-white mountains, the land of my fathers and grandfathers. Then he faltered, coughed, and sang the next two lines in a deep, slightly hoarse baritone. My mountains, my blue-white mountains, my cradle of life. Here he stopped again, as if frightened by something, and fell silent. I imagined his embarrassment quite vividly. However, there was something deeply moving in this halting, timid singing, and he probably had a very good voice. It was difficult to believe that it was Daniyar. Well, well, I exclaimed. Why didn't you ever sing before? Sing, sing as you really can, Jamila cried. It was light ahead. There the canyon ended. A breeze was blowing from the valley. Daniyar began to sing again. He began as timidly and as uncertainly as before, but gradually his voice gained volume. It filled the canyon, resounding and echoing from the far-off cliffs. I was most amazed by the passion and fire of the song. I didn't know what to call it and do not know now. Rather, I can't determine whether it was the voice alone or something bigger, something that came from the soul, something capable of arousing the same emotion in another, capable of bringing to life one's innermost thoughts. If I were only able to recreate in some way Daniyar's song, there were hardly any words to it, but without words it revealed a big human heart. Neither before nor after did I ever hear such a song. It was neither Kyrgyz nor Kazakh, but there was something of both in it. Daniyar had combined the best melodies of the two related peoples and had curiously woven them into a never-to-be-repeated pattern. This was a song of the mountains and steppes, now soaring like the
Kyrgyz mountains, now vast and rolling like the Kazakh steppes. As I listened, I became more and more amazed. So that's what Daniyar is really like. Who would have ever believed it? We were crossing the steppe along the soft, beaten road. Daniyar's voice soared. Ever new melodies followed one another with astounding grace. Was he so gifted? What had happened to him? It was as if he had been waiting for this day, for this hour to come. And suddenly I understood his strangeness, which made people shrug and smile, his dreaminess, his love of solitude, his silences. I understood why he spent his evenings on the lookout hill and his nights alone on the river bank, why he was constantly listening to sounds inaudible to others, and why his eyes would suddenly sparkle and his usually drawn eyebrows twitch. This was a person who was deeply in love, and I felt that this was not merely love for another person. This was different. It was a tremendous love of life, of the earth. Yes, he kept this love within himself, in his music. It was his guiding light. An indifferent person could never have sung as he did, no matter how great his voice. When it seemed that the last note had died away, a new haunting wave seemed to waken the dozing steppe, and it listened gratefully to the singer whose dear native melody was like a caress. The ripe yellow ash wheat awaiting harvesting rippled like the surface of a lake, and the first shadows of dawn dotted over the field. A mighty regiment of old willows at the mill rustled their leaves. Beyond the river, the campfires of the field workers were dying down, and a shadowy rider was galloping silently along the river bank towards the village, now disappearing among the orchards, now reappearing again. The wind was heavy with the smell of apples, the warm milk-like scent of the flowering maize, and the smell of drying dung bricks. Daniyar sang and on, oblivious to everything, while the enchanted August night listened to him in silence. Even the horses had long since changed to a walk, as if afraid to break the spell. Abruptly, on the highest ringing note, Daniyar broke off his song, whooped and whipped his horses. I thought Jamila would gallop after him and was ready to follow her. But she did not move. She remained sitting with her head inclined, as if listening to the last tremulous notes drifting in the air. Daniyar rode off. Neither of us said a word until we reached the village. There was no need to talk, for words cannot always express all one feels.